Okay, this is an English mock exam relating to the speech by Tony Blair, The Duty to Integrate.
Yes, and our discussion will take set in the rhetorical pentagram,
where we will discuss the topic, the writer, the audience,
the circumstances,
and the form of argumentation, and we will then discuss
which kind of text to relate to the Tony Blair speech, or how you can, which text you can make a perspective to. Yes.
Yeah. And we'll start with the topic. Well, as Kara said, it's a speech made for the public. But we don't know where it was told.
But it was told in 2006.
Yeah, sorry. And it's pretty much just Tony Blair talking about integration. And in his speech, he represents his way of living peacefully in a multicultural Britain. You can see that in the title, The Duty to Integrate. Where he talks about how should immigrants integrate in Britain.
Yeah, and everyone has a duty to do so, to create a peaceful environment for everyone to live by.
Yeah.
And when you talk about that, you can also talk about him, the writer, because he's from the Labour Party, and the Labour Party really focuses on the integration of immigrants, and they think that it's their fault that Britain is such a multicultural country today.
We should mention that he's a former Prime Minister of Britain.
Yeah.
And therefore he has an obligation to sort of want to see multiculturalism and immigration as a positive thing, because that's in his political point of view, as Sarah also talked about.
And he believes that the Labour Party is the reason why Britain has a non-discriminating philosophy.
Yeah, we actually have a quote for that. It says on page 1 that it is a matter of some pride to me that it has only been Labour governments that have introduced anti-discrimination legislation. Yes.
Yeah, and that proves
that
our
sort
point.
of supports that.
Yeah, and we also know, because he's a former Prime Minister, that he has authority and he knows what he talks about, because he's a part of this political debate. So kind of just by being a Prime Minister, he uses ethos because we believe in what he says, because he's an authority.
Yeah, and before we start talking about the language and presentation, we just have to mention the reader, who the audience is, and it is intended for all people of the British society. Sorry, I have to sleep.
Yeah, all ethnic minorities.
Yeah, and also the entire world, because, well, there's just been these London bombings, and the whole world sort of expects an answer from him.
Yeah, and he has to reassure the audience that multiculturalism and immigration isn't a bad thing, because they view immigration as a bad thing because of the bombings, or we assume they do so.
And he has to react, he has to appear strong after the attack, so that he can assure the audience or the reader that they can move on and they can get their life back together.
Yeah. And then we would like to talk about the logos, ethos, and pathos in the speech.
Yes.
Yeah.
Modes of persuasion.
Modes of persuasion.
Yeah. Well, first he sort of talks about the logos, like the logic of it all, and we have a quote. It is not about culture of lifestyle, it is about values. It's about integration at the point of shared, common, unifying British values. So he's sort of saying that if people don't have the same values, it can be hard for them to live together. So even though they're immigrants, they sort of have to have like British values.
Yeah, so it's kind of logical for the people that they have to share values just like they share the same law in order to live together peacefully.
And as I said before, he uses ethos just because he's a Prime Minister, but he also uses it because a lot of time in the speech he refers to different dates and happenings in British history. And that shows us that he knows about facts and knows about stuff which relates to this topic about integration and the London bombings.
Yeah, maybe that sort of creates a how do you say that? A feeling that they're all the same, a national feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we
all-
can also see that in a quote we have. We like our diversity, but how do we react when the difference leads to separation and alienation from the values that define what we hold in common? And then he talks about something more. But we see that he uses the word "we" a lot, and that makes the audience feel like they're united and they actually share the same values. And it also brings him down to their level because he's not just their superior; he's one of them, and he kind of uses pathos to create
A feeling of community and
Yeah.
togetherness, and it's also sort of a humble way of appealing to his audience.
Yeah, making
Um,
him a part of the audience as well,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of just an authority.
and he sort of also creates a common enemy that all of them have to defeat.
He also uses a lot of positive words that make him seem very positive and about the future of Britain, and makes the audience feel confident, and they might be more willing to agree to his argument when they feel comfortable in the situation that he's presenting for them as a positive situation, and make them have better feelings, stronger positive feelings towards Tony Blair as the Prime Minister, because he reinforces the positive in their community and civilization.
Yeah. And when talking about language furthermore, you can say that his tone, like Carrie just said, he uses positive words, but then again, his tone in the speech is it changes from positive to negative and back again all the time. He needs to talk about the multiculturalism is good in Britain, but then he needs to relate to the fact that they have just there have just been bombings because of this multiculturalism. So it's kind of
he has to say that, okay, even though immigration is a good thing, we can't see the downside. He can't really deny that this thing has happened, so he have to like relate to it. And
He can't seem ignorant
Yeah.
by the fact that these bombings have happened. That wouldn't appeal to the audience either. Yeah.
Yeah. When talking about the language, we also see that it's formal because he's a politician and he has to appear like he knows what he's doing, but it's also very easy to understand, and that's good because he's talking to all the British people, and some of them might not be as well educated as himself or as other people.
Yeah.
So we can see that it's formal, but it's not academic
Yeah.
to say.
It has to be understandable for everyone,
yeah,
so
because
that
he's
they
talking,
can understand the
Yeah,
point of the speech.
Mm.
And also, not it would, if he used a very academic form of language, he would seem very above all the other people, very superior to them.
yeah, and
Which-
especially the
yeah.
immigrants who really can't understand that kind of language
Yeah.
if they aren't integrated.
and
enough.
also if he used academic language, he will seem somehow cold, but he needs to show emotion, and I think that's easier with easily understandable language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The circumstances during this speech was, of course, the 7/7 bombings, the London bombings, and again, as we have mentioned before, he needs to prove that multicultural Britain is a good thing, and that integration isn't a bad thing. And we also did a little research, and at the time he was also very popular.
Unpopular.
Unpopular. Sorry, unpopular. Yeah. At the time, so he sort of needs to save his own reputation, and when he doing the speech, So yeah,
That also relates very good to the intention of the speech. That, well, he have to convince the people that integration is still a good thing, but then again, because he's very unpopular at the time, he has to also make him and the party look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything a politician says is about getting votes.
Yeah.
And we can see that because he's really trying to make his party and himself look good.
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've looked a bit on his argumentation, and it's like in the end of the speech, he's trying to come up with a solution to this problem about integration. And yeah, in the end, he says, like Maya said before, it's not about cultural lifestyle, it's about values, it's about integration at the point of shared, common, unifying British values. And here you can see that his solution to the problem is that the British people need to have the same values, but it's not very specific and it's very abstract, and well, it's without certain.
Yeah, he has no specific solutions
Yeah.
to the problem. He has no way of guaranteeing that this won't happen again. It's just mainly a speech about the good of multiculturalism, but there's no solutions to his problem that will prevent, for example, the bombings happening again. And we discussed that we could relate this a lot to Foucault, because it sounds a lot as if Tony Blair wants a utopia where everybody's living in peace together and there are no bombings, there are no problems, everybody lives side by side under the same values. But in reality, this is not possible. Britain is the heterotopia, where this utopia at this point is not reachable.
Yeah, we actually see it all over the world, that everything that happens, all the wars and bombings, is the heterotopia. We can't really, as Kira says, at this point live together with the
Yeah,
same
and
values.
no matter how good integration gets, there will always be people who don't feel the same way and will make, I don't know if about bombs, but there will always be people that will, make society bad for everyone else.
And you can say that the speech is therefore a speech with a lot of pathos, because it's not about holding hands together and living
Feeling
peacefully.
good,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, without any certain solutions. So I guess, yeah, speech with a lot of pathos.
And maybe you can say that maybe the same values aren't the goal, but accepting each other instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
And if we put it into context with other course material, the material with the same topic, we could compare it to Robin Cook Chicken Tikka Masala, where
He's from the same
yeah,
party, like the Labour Party, and then he says like this chicken masala dish is like a symbol of multiculturalism, because well, it's some foreign dish, but we just add some gravy and then it's pretty. So
Yeah,
so
so
again,
all mixed.
yeah,
So-
everyone living together.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's the same.
Yeah, so the food, the food is kind of a symbol of this, the same values, because you can bring food together from all over the world. So why not values?
Yeah.
You can create the same values for everyone. They
And
live
make
together.
a very tasty dish.
Yes.
So you could make a discussion about whether or not Robin Cook and Tony Blair is kind of naive, because will they come up with this solution that we need to hold hand and
but not any specific
Integrate.
solutions.
exactly. So maybe they're naive.
Yeah, and if we look at another point of view on multiculturalism and integration, we have Salman Rushdie, The New Empire Within Britain, and he sort of criticizes multiculturalism and says that it's not really possible, because there is this what was it called, the
Myth of Swan.
yeah, and this mentality that the old empire still. The Britons still have a huge fondness for their old colonial rulership, and they still have this mentality that they rule all, and it's a false hope for immigrants that come to Britain that they will be accepted as equals because the general attitude towards immigrants is that black people or immigrants from all other countries should behave as white people, and this leads to stereotyping. And he says that this is a big problem, and to solve it, that white people should eradicate their prejudices. Yeah, and that's a lot more of a negative point of view on multiculturalism.
But when you compare to Tony Blair or Robin Cook, you might say that he's more realistic because
Yeah.
he doesn't say that everything is just great and blah blah. He says that, well, there are problems and he might not have any solutions to them, but at least he sees them and he makes people aware of them.
And in a way, it sort of increases his ethos because when you can see both the positive and negative sides, well, mainly the negatives, it makes the author more trustworthy because they have viewed the topic from all points of view and acknowledge that there is a problem. But he also sort of gives a solution to the problem. There's a quote where he says the white people should eradicate their prejudices, and that's a lot more of a specific way to a solution than, for example, Tony Blair or Robin Cook has given us.
Yeah, but then again, we really have to look at the circumstances because at Tony Blair's speech, there's just been these London bombings, and if he starts talking about all the negative stuff, he might lose some people and a lot of votes. And he's a politician, and Salman Rushdie's not.
Yeah.
So there's a huge, it's different how they make their argument, of course,
Yeah.
and because
Also
of
how
the-
they can make
Yeah.
an argument, because Tony Blair cannot say things like Salman Rushdie
Yeah.
does, because then he would get
Yeah,
kicked.
also
It's
down of
easier
the
for
Prime
people
Minister.
outside to criticize instead
exactly.
of like a politician.
Because
Also,
this
it-
has no consequences for someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if he said that, oh, everything is bad and there's just stereotypes and integration is wrong, then I think people would lose hope because
Yeah.
they have just experienced bombings, and then he says, well, everything's crap, so
Yeah.
they would kind of lose hope in their country and
Then
in
you can make a
integration.
perspective to loss of identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fixed it.
Bye.
Bye.